Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Scottish Football Social Club and Premier Sports. It is Monday night. It's the start of the international break. Almost time for us to take a breather on what has been a ridiculously crazy season so far. And the talking, the big discussion points, they continue tonight. Sadly, VAR will come up at some point. We'll get to that, but so much to get through from the weekend. I know Michael's got a bit in his mind. Alan's probably here just to put out some fires tonight. I've opted for the specs, by the way. It's one last ditch effort to come across as intelligent, guys. I know it's tough on this show, but I'm doing my best. Al. Acceptable?
Yes, I think they are. I think you look very intelligent, as you rightly put it. So we'll soon find out.
Excellent. Right, I've got some reading to do as well at one point, so there is some method to my madness. Just a quick reminder, the Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you in association with SBK and Premier Sports. SBK, a betting app that cuts out the nonsense, just straight up sports betting for folk who actually care about the game, proper odds, no gimmicks. All right. Are you ready, Michael? Are you prepared? That says it all. Okay, right, Al, I'm coming to you first. Let's work our way through the weekend, if you like. Falkirk, Livingston, played on Saturday, 1-1 in the end. We were saying, Alan, in the show last week, when we have a look at this game, that Livi, the credit they deserve because they never give up. Same again. That's another point that could be so valuable in the end they've got here.
Absolutely. I think we've seen it in the Hibs game that they go right to the final whistle, and it's a good attribute to have. But that being said, I think the amount of goals that they've been conceding, I think they're lucky at this moment in time because the league's so tight. So another win and they can kind of push up there. But they've only got one so far out of 12 games, and they need more. But I think from Falkirk's point of view, you look at where they're sitting fifth at this moment in time. I think John McGlynn would be over the moon with the position that they're in. They play some really good stuff. I think the front four link up really, really well. This is a dangerous ball in. Stevie May, I think he actually turns his back on it a little bit. You just see here, but his arm's outstretched, and you're always going to give away a penalty in that case for me. So I think it is the right decision. Just in fact that he did turn away, and Graham steps up, and it's a brilliantly executed penalty. That's when you just want to see them put their foot down and try and get the second and try and get it kind of out of Livi's reach. But we know how Livi want to play. They like to play a little bit of football now, and they're always going to come back at you. And that, I think he needs to do better. That's probably the game done and dusted then. But you give them the opportunity. Kerry, we know he's got brilliant delivery, and Wilson with a powerful header at the back post. And it's just the character that they've shown, and especially in recent weeks, that they need to start winning games if they want to climb up that table.
They do. How did you see the game, Michael? Because in the end, it's a point apiece. Obviously, Livingston will come away feeling like they've got a bit of momentum again, because there's something about late goals, what it can do for the dressing room, isn't there?
Well, of course it is, right? I mean, Falkirk at one point were, on course before the conceding the late goal. I think they were sitting in third place in the league. So it's been quite an incredible wee run of results for Falkirk, and then to concede late on, huge one for Livi. They're obviously at the wrong end of the table, and they're desperately trying to pick up points. They've done that now with the late goals against Hibs and Falkirk there to hopefully, you would imagine, build a bit of belief and confidence. But certainly, the two promoted sides there's not a huge number of points, as we know, between so many of the teams, but the difference in fortunes in terms of the feel good factor is going to be sky high for Falkirk at this moment, and for Livi it just feels like they're sort of trying to hang in there, but getting late goals is certainly going to help them, that's for certain.
And did I see David Martindale doing a bit of politics this week, Michael? You love a bit of politics, don't you? Not on this show, by the way, but a bit of respect for that.
Yeah, I've not actually seen it. I didn't know whether it was this week or last week or what.
He's been on.
I had seen the headlines that he was on. Yes, indeed.
I'd like to see you on that, Michael. Something like that. I'd have the popcorn now. I'd love that.
I've done it, Alan. That was a historical thing. Yes, I've been on. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Did you chalk it down as a success or a failure, Michael?
Say that again. Sorry.
Did you chalk it down as success or failure, your appearance?
Well, I'd leave that for others to judge, Darrell. Yeah.
The less said, Al, the less said, the better. Right, onwards. You guys were in Paisley, St Mirren, Hibs. Let's get through the game then. I think this is the kind of result that David Gray would have been desperate for, Alan. A real decisive victory, which it was in the end. I know there was a few moments in the game we'll discuss, but in the end, 3-0 away at St Mirren looks very good on paper, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, we highlighted the fact that the goals that they've been conceding, the amount of points they've dropped from winning positions hasn't really helped them. It could look a whole lot different if that wasn't the case. But I felt in the first half they'd done well. I thought both teams had opportunities. It wasn't really until the second half that I felt that Hibs kind of took the game by the scruff of the neck and kind of ran with it, and they got stronger as the game went on. Obviously, Michael will get right into this after the.
Yes, we'll come back to that.
We'll come back to it and get into it. But yeah, I mean, that could have been a really good start for them. It didn't quite work out, and then Hibs go up and get their goal. But I just felt it was a huge moment for Hibs to go and prove to everybody what they're capable of with that squad. That I think they've really recruited well. They look really strong. It's just about putting your foot down and finishing teams off, and that's what they've done. They looked hungry. I mean, you look at McGrady, he spots it early doors. He knows he can go and win the ball. Lovely little setback to Mulligan, and he's been another really good signing for them. And he goes and scores that first goal. St Mirren still had chances. Look, you've seen the second offside goal just as it went into the second half, but after that, I really thought Hibs went into another gear. I thought Nicky Cadden was really good. Barlassa in midfield was good. And they got the points that they deserved. And it's something, hopefully, that they can now go and build on. Because, yes, they're in third, but they want to really go and put pressure on the teams above them as well.
Yeah, I think some of the Hibs fans, Michael, I asked you last week, if you remember, actually, why is it not quite clicking for them? And I think you said, it's hard to know because the squad looks really good. They needed a result like this, the Hibs fans as well, because they were starting to raise some questions, Michael, as you know, some of the fans about the way the team was being, managed and the personnel being used, and which is natural, as you know, when the team's not winning as much as it probably should be. What do you make of some of that, though? I mean, do they deserve a bit of criticism for not getting more out of games this season, or do you feel that the fans are being a little bit harsh there?
No, I think it's understandable. It's just the nature of football, isn't it? That if you're not getting the results, if you're conceding and dropping points from winning positions as well, then obviously there's going to be a bit of disappointment, and it's happened quite a lot so far this season. And I think there's an element of frustration as well, because I think that, if you're taking a sort of step back and looking at Hibs, as I was talking about the other week there, they have improved. And I suppose it never helps when your city rivals are flying high. That obviously adds pressure as well. And, I've mentioned this quite a few times. Hibs could be comfortably sitting in second place without, too much having gone differently, just dropping silly points from commanding positions. But, that result and the performance on Saturday was very good. As much as obviously St Mirren have not had the season in the league that they would have hoped so far, going away to Paisley is not easy at all. And I thought Hibs were very, very good. Alan's talking about there in the second half, getting better. I thought as the game went on, Hibs became more and more commanding. Quite similar to the game at Pittodrie from Hibs, where they created loads of chances. To win 3-0 away at St Mirren, not easy. And yeah, I think, Hibs are in a good place. They have a good squad. And if they can start to string together a few positive results, I do think that it's onwards and upwards for them, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, there's no reason why not, Al. When you look at the players they've got, and remember, this is Kieran Bowie, not even firing in all cylinders, and some of the players you were getting excited about last season, maybe not reaching full potential. There's so much to like. Just briefly on St Mirren, Al, is it a bit difficult sometimes? You come off the highs of a game, like the semi-final win, and some of the goals they scored, you need to go again. And this is the bread and butter, and you could tell Stephen Robinson was disappointed after the match because of that very thing. But is it sometimes kind of tricky after the elation to get back to business, if you like?
Yeah, I suppose in a way. I mean, big semi-final, I thought they were excellent. It was funny because Stephen Robinson didn't think they actually played amazingly well, which I was kind of surprised at. I thought they did. And we spoke to him before the game about it. But you're right, it's bread and butter, the league. And they have to be doing better. If they want to be up in that top six again for the fourth year, they need to be putting results together, because I think it's no wins in the last 5. They've only scored 8 goals in the league, which would worry me more after the amount of games that they've played. But they've definitely got quality. And when it all clicks, like the Motherwell game, we can see how dangerous they are. And you're right, going there is very, very difficult for any team.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a blip for them, but they're going to need to turn it around quickly.
And the margins as well, Al, are so small. I mean, we've said this, offside decisions going against you. You think of the decision, by the way, that went against them when they were playing Hearts, which would have put them in a really commanding position, and that didn't go their way. And I think we all know since that was a mistake. It's been admitted that was an error. So, it's the margins going against teams at the moment, and it's fine. Just talking about the first disallowed goal in the game then. The complication, I think, here, guys, and I was watching on, I was a viewer at home. I think the complication was that I saw the lines go out, the VAR lines going out on the broadcast. That was provided to Premier Sports, the broadcaster. And then, Michael, you raised a couple of questions about where the blue line was initially marked. It was clearly the wrong side of the ball because the ball plays people onside. We know that. And the blue line was to the right, not to the left of the ball, if that makes sense in this image. Later on after the game, we were sent revised lines. A new image, I should tell you. A new image is important to let you know. We got this image, and obviously the blue line had been moved slightly. Now, we can still debate whether or not that blue line's in the right place or not, Michael, but I think it's important to say there was confusion caused for you guys in the broadcast, wasn't there, by what you were sent first time round?
Well, clearly, I mean, you can see obviously flitting between the two pictures there. It looks like a different picture. And after the game, when I came into the studio, I had spoken about there being a different frame used, and that's incorrect. And, apologies for any sort of misunderstanding on that. But, I did that on the basis of because the picture looks different. I think one of them zoomed in than the other.
Yeah.
I assumed that it was like a different frame that had been used. So that was wrong. And I apologise for that. But I think due to us receiving, different images on the first and the second one, I went on to try and say that perhaps there was a mistake that was made and they were trying to cover it up with this second image. I'm not trying to claim that there is something untoward going on. There was a very much a case of the communication was lacking and I was unsure, live broadcast as well, what was going on with different images and different frames that were sent. To be clear, it's the same frame. I shouldn't have said that it was a different frame, so apologies for that. But we need to be, clear on what's actually happened in the process of the lines being drawn here, and are the lines that have been sent through after the match, are they still correct? Because it's very difficult, but I would say to people, if they have the opportunity to pause and zoom in here, the crucial part is the St Mirren player who's crossing the ball. And it appears as if the lines may well still not be in the right place. And we're seeking clarification on this.
Can I come in there, Michael? Can I come in?
Yes,
Because as a viewer, and I'm looking at the second image that was sent to Premier Sports after the game, okay, by VAR. And it looks to me like the blue line goes right through the ball.
Yes.
Now, I don't understand that because here's what I know. If the ball's on the ground, the ball can play you onside, and therefore the VAR line should be just slightly to the front of the ball, if you like, which would be the left of the ball in this image. And I still can't see that that's the case. Now, that's just my opinion. Now, of course, we can get further clarification from the SFA on this. But if that blue line's not in the right place, then we if that's the case, by the way, then definitively it would be difficult to say whether it was on or offside indeed. So I think this is where the problem arises, that we're not sure if the marking has been correct. We spoke about this in the show last week, if you remember. We have spoken about this for months on this programme. There is a degree of human error. The technology is not perfect in Scotland. And I've always said, Alan, you would attest to this, I've always said, if we feel like we can't use the technology properly or it's not necessarily giving us clarification of the correct decisions, I worry about what impact it has on football teams and promotion and relegation and all that kind of stuff. Not promotion, but, title winners and all that kind of stuff, or relegation, whatever it might be. That's my concern. It's the systemic concern, I think. If it's not being used correctly, it's a big, big problem. Alan, just on your opinion, the blue line with the ball's marked, is that something that confused you as well?
Yeah, it did, because Michael was in the know because he was in the commentary, as he can hear what's going on. We were in the stand, so it was very difficult. So it wasn't until after that we really got a look at it. And I'm obviously with you both, Darrell. When I first seen it, I was thinking, where the ball was positioned, if that was the first image, then it looks like he would have been offside, right? It's changed. I still look at this one and I think where the blue line is still not clear for me. I just feel, even when you look at it from this angle, very difficult to tell exactly where everybody is.
Yeah.
Like from this angle of behind, if you were looking at it from the other side, maybe be a little bit better. But look, it's went against St Mirren against Hearts, which is obviously disappointing. Now this, it's ultra tight. I mean, is there a case for, if it's this tight and it's taken that long, just go with on-field decision, because it's very difficult to tell. But yeah, I mean, these decisions, they need to be correct, because it's really, it's going to affect teams in the long run.
Absolutely. And if you remember, Michael, on the show last week, and it's not the first time I've said it, I've talked about conversations I've had with some of the top referees in the world, Howard Webb and others, about having a margin of error put in. Now, and when I say a margin of error, if the lines are too close and there's within maybe a couple of inches, I said 6 inches last week, maybe that was too much, but a couple of inches, potentially you just say, well, look, it's onside, because there has to be a margin of error, human error at play here.
Yeah.
Now, we would probably be told, if the red and blue line touch, that is a margin of error, because it's given as goal given, and that goal would be awarded if the lines are touching.
Onside.
What I think I'm saying is, I think I was trying to make clear last week, is these decisions are so marginal and so tight, and there is some human error at play as well. It just increase the margin of error in the system then slightly. Increase it to allow for the odd, people talk about toenails. I don't mean that. I just mean, if we can't be 100% certain we're marking things in the right points, add a couple of inches, a margin of error. All the teams would need to agree anyway. They're paying for VAR, remember, and you could potentially move forward. Maybe more goals would be awarded. There'd be less discussion. That's what I was trying to say last week, if that makes sense to people.
It does, Darrell. Of course it does. I mean, look, the point is this, that we got an initial image that was sent to broadcast, and I think, you're perhaps going to read out the communication that's come back from the SFA, because Premier were seeking clarification. And it would appear now that they have accepted and admitted that there was an error in the marking of the blue line. The second image that's come through, it would appear, when you look at the St Mirren player that's crossing the ball, that the blue line is going through the ball, and that's not where the blue line should be marked. Now, if that gets moved any further, it looks as if it could be close to touching the red line, which would change the decision. So we need clarification on, are these lines in the right place? Because it's not certain, and I think this speaks to what you're talking about in terms of, we're making decisions on things that are so marginal that we've seen a mistake being made here on Saturday that's been accepted by, I think, the SFA. And
well, let's just say what I would say, and that is, what they've clearly done, they've clearly sent us a new image, and it's obvious the blue line has been moved in that image.
Mm-hmm. But to clarify, they have accepted that the wrong image was sent to begin with, and the blue line was then moved, and that mistake. The second pictures, if you look at the picture of the St Mirren player who's crossing the ball, the lines have appeared to move. The blue one, the red one, I mean, I'm not sure why, but the red one, perhaps we need clarification on, has it moved, the red line? Has the blue line moved?
That's obviously your opinion at the moment, that's speculation. What I would say is, as a broadcaster...
I'm not speculating on anything.
No, I'm saying that's just your opinion at the moment, that you're not certain.
Well, I don't think it is. We need look, this happened on Saturday, and we're still seeking clarification as to what has happened here. What is the outcome? Is the right outcome being arrived at? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I should say, as a broadcaster, Premier Sports, we did send some questions to the SFA today, and we did receive some responses. And I think maybe not all the questions have been fully answered. So in the next few days, I think Premier Sports will seek further clarification, further answers from the SFA as to exactly, what happened on the night. And indeed, if they could be more specific in their answers to some of those questions. Should also say, by the way, we did send an email asking if Willie Collum wanted to join us on the show tonight, and then he could have put his own feelings forward about this or explained it himself. As far as I know, that email has not been acknowledged yet. So maybe it will be at some point, but not acknowledged yet. So we did offer the opportunity to respond to Willie Collum tonight. So look, maybe more questions than answers at the moment, and we'll all disagree a bit. But Michael, I just want to also say for you, as a broadcaster yourself here, then it was heat of the moment at the end of the game. Is that right? And as you've already sort of mentioned, there's a couple of things that you said that maybe, on reflection, you possibly wouldn't have said. Is that fair? Is that the right way to put it?
Well, I've said what I said earlier on, Darrell.
Okay. No, I'm allowing you the chance if you want to reiterate.
Pictures were sent through. The first image was incorrect. The second one came through, which appeared to be a different frame. It wasn't, and I suggested that perhaps it was. I apologise for that because it wasn't a different frame. The same frame's been used, but it appears as if it was zoomed in.
Yeah.
We're trying to look. Ultimately, we're broadcasting, trying to get clarity across to the punters,
of course,
and we're seeking clarity. And at the moment, we're not getting a great deal of clarity, so we're still trying to get that. I had suggested it was a different frame. It wasn't a different frame. The same frame's been used, but the lines have moved, it would appear, and we're wanting clarification as to what has happened with that. I think that's fair to say.
And it's not just us, by the way. There's other people who've been in touch with us today, and it's up to them if they want to put their own opinions forward. Some quite high-ranking people as well who are in the know, who obviously are also asking some questions. But that's maybe for another day, and we can have those discussions privately with the SFA as a broadcaster as we move forward. But anyway, there was a bit of confusion. It's not great, Al. And I think I'll just go back to my original point here. Whether you want a greater margin of error added to the system or not, that at the moment, this is an imperfect science, isn't it? Because of the way that we have VAR to be utilised in Scotland. It's not, we don't have as many cameras. We don't have all the same angles that other, maybe so-called bigger leagues have. And that is going to lead to, I'd say, confusion from broadcasters, from fans, from anyone. And also leads to further questions being asked, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the issue going forwards.
It leads to this situation that we're talking about. I mean, if you have all the equipment at your disposal, then you can get better decisions made, I presume. So the way it is right now, there is some mistakes being made, it looks like, not even just this one, previous games that we've spoken about for a number of weeks now. But look, I understand there's an element of human error. There's always going to be. But I think the impact these games that it has on these games is massive, and you have to be getting it right. And Michael puts some good points across that you want clarity on this, and then we can move forward and try and make it better. But we'll wait and see what they come back with.
Absolutely. We'll see if we get any more answers. I'm sure further discussions will happen, but we should probably move on and leave it at that for now anyway. And look, we'll continue to discuss VAR and referees in this show if we think anything has to be held to account or any questions need to be asked. That's our job. We'll continue to do that. But I think we've got to move forward now anyway. Never mind the fact we're 23 minutes into the programme, Al. We've got through 2 games. Right, on to Sunday. Aberdeen, Motherwell. Michael, you were watching the Dons, weren't you, in Cyprus? You were watching their European performance, which was much better after Ike Athens. Michael, are the Dons now headed in the right direction with their new sporting director on the way as well? Do you feel that the Dons are in a good place now?
I mean, to be honest, I think that Aberdeen are in a position at the moment where they need a run of results, victories, to try and build their way out of what is just a little bit of a unknown. Everything feels a little bit sort of just stuck in the mud at the moment in time. The performance was okay, the result was okay, but they're just needing something to kickstart them. I think midweek against Larnaca was okay. You take the point away from home, but having watched the game, you're feeling like there could have been more for them there. I was disappointed with Larnaca. I was expecting more after they had picked up good results in the Conference League. And then likewise against Motherwell at home, there's aspects of it which were okay, and they've got a draw, but it just feels like there's a wee bit of lethargy just still lingering about, and it's obviously gone from a very, very disappointing start to the campaign, whereas now it's okay. It feels like they're needing to do something to really kick on now.
Yeah, I mean, January, I know we've said this about many teams, January's huge, especially because they have a new sporting director coming in as well, who's going to arrive this week, Alan. Lutz Pfannenstiel, that we've discussed him before, and it does sound like with his contacts, it could be a good appointment, but, time will tell, of course. Hopefully we'll get Lutz on the show in the coming weeks. On Motherwell, when you look through the highlights of this, Al, another game where it feels like they started really well. They needed a response as well, remember, after the Cup semi-final. Started really well. Very unlucky with some of these chances. It's not like they were missing glaring chances in this game. I think Motherwell fans are still accepting they're playing some great football. It's not always going their way, and that's not great. Not easy to take at times, but they're playing some great stuff still, Al.
Yeah, they are, but I feel like we're saying the same things.
Yeah,
week in, kind of week out, where they are good to watch and they do create lots of opportunities, but they don't take them. And this is a problem. This was the problem against St Mirren as well. When they attack, they're very open. Fullbacks are high up the pitch. Everybody's pushing forward. When they turn the ball over, if you're quick, and Carlson is, you see him, he breaks away down the line, cuts in, it's a great finish. That's their kind of Achilles heel for me.
yeah.
They probably had most of the possession for this game, like 65% or whatever, creating chances, but you can hurt them on the counters, and it's happening all too often. So, yeah, I think the fans will be happy with the style change and the way they're going. They're still in a decent position at this moment in time, but I just feel they're missing just something, just like a key element, whether it be a guy who's going to score you 10 plus goals or whatever it may be. It's just that turnover situation where, for me, they're just too open.
Yeah. The goal, obviously, Motherwell scored from their point of view. Great thinking, Michael, wasn't it?
Oh, brilliant.
The corner, brilliant. But defensively, if that was your team, Mikey, you'd be fuming, wouldn't you? From Aberdeen point of view, the goal they conceded?
Aye, absolutely. I mean, it was quick thinking from Motherwell. But from Aberdeen's perspective, it's you've got two guys on the edge of the 6-yard box. I think it's Devlin and Lazetic who are in a bit of a conversation, not anticipating and expecting something so quick to happen. And then you've got young Dylan Lobin who's trying to get out to close it down. Mitov scrambling across to try to stop it from going in the net. It just looks, it doesn't look particularly great. Credit to Motherwell though, Slattery with a quick corner and then just able to tap in at the back of the net. It's a good bit of inventive quick play from Motherwell, which has obviously been able to get them a point there at Pittodrie.
Yes. Right, on to Dundee against Rangers. Alan, you were also watching Rangers in Europe against Roma, and although there was a few positive signs, it was another pretty comprehensive defeat against a good team, no doubt about it. They needed to win this game, didn't they? Going to Dens, they absolutely needed to, or again, same old questions would be raised about some of the players, and maybe there will still be some anyway after the match, the strikers. But this was just essential from the Rangers' point of view, wasn't it, the way they started this game?
Yeah, well, I think it was really important that they got off to a good start, I would say. I think the midweek game, they were outclassed by a better team with a lot of experience within it. But I prefer when they go back to a back four. I think it kind of frees up the forward-thinking players. Moore kind of came into his own. I think in recent weeks we've seen him with an energy to get around the pitch to make things happen.
He looks like a different player under this manager.
I think so. But see, sometimes I think these kind of guys need to play with freedom, have that ability to come off the line, go in, link up play, make things happen. I think when you do that, you see the best of him. Whether under Russell Martin, he was kind of tied down a little bit to play a certain type of way that didn't suit him. But obviously Danny Rule coming in now, it's better for him. But there is signs against the kind of league opposition where there's green shoots now. You're seeing a little bit of cohesion in the forward areas. I think defensively there is still one or two issues, but they're trying to iron them out. But look, the be-all and end-all is the league games. That's 3 in a row now. They've had a couple of disappointing results in the semi-final and in Europe. That needs to turn around quickly. Look, it's going to be difficult. But in terms of league, you have to keep chipping away at this points difference, and they have to do it now.
Yeah, I think you said cohesion in the front areas there, Alan. I know what you mean, because there were some real positives, guys like Mikey Moore, obviously, who showed great desire against Roma as well, by the way. The amount of running he did in the night is what Danny Rule, when he first came in, he said is the bare minimum. He expects players to show 100% effort throughout the night. But the forwards, Miovski, I don't know which Bojan Miovski, which version that is. He looks like a different player than we saw in Scotland a few years ago. Yeah, and Chermiti as well. And Danilo obviously flashes, but hauled off after 45 minutes the game prior. I
You
don't
need
know.
more,
I mean,
Darrell. You need more from the forward players. Look, I'm saying because it's been poor. Right, let's not get it twisted here. It's been really poor, especially in the final third. We've been speaking about it for weeks. I think everybody as a collective must do more. I think when you see the likes of Moore coming in off the line, and I know he gets a little bit lucky in off of Danilo and then gets in and then he finishes it off, but I just think that's where the problem is at this moment in time. Yes, they were conceding too many goals. They tried to shore it up, but you need to be seeing more in the forward players. And you can go through them all, like Asgard, all of them. They have to be doing more.
Yep, and when they continue to underperform, questions will continue to be asked of the board, of course. And Kevin Thelwell ahead of the next window, it's not going to go away. You've seen the fans' response publicly on who is running the club behind the scenes. They're not happy at all with that. And Michael, on Dundee, you saw a comment just on screen probably a second ago there. Stephen Adamson, I think it was, Mikey. Dundee fans not happy. It wasn't long ago we were praising them for the way they played against Celtic. Slow out the gates this time and it cost them. Mikey, what's your take on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously Stephen Presley was saying that, what was it, the Falkirk game 2 weeks ago? They were 1-0 up at half-time after a horrific VAR decision that had gone against them. I think you remember the penalty that should have been given. That
Gamble
VAR
decision,
yeah, that was a truly horrendous decision that VAR had made a mistake on, and then they end up obviously dropping points in that game. And at that point, I think they were sitting third in the table. So I think Stephen Presley had referenced that, but I mean, it's by the by to a great extent because he knows that if you don't get the results, then the scrutiny is going to come. So they're now languishing at the bottom end. The game against Rangers, it was as routine, as comfortable as Danny Rowe would have hoped for. Yeah. They were never really in any trouble, and it's a difficult one for Dundee in terms of when you look at obviously some of the games and the performances that they've put in. There's just too big a discrepancy between the good results and the poor performances. Even at Tynecastle, see for about the first half an hour before Lawrence Shanklin scored, they were playing all right. Yeah. But then as soon as Lawrence Shanklin scores, it just felt like the roof caved in, and Hearts obviously full of belief and confidence. So it just feels like for Dundee at this moment, they are very fragile. Yeah. And I'm not really sure how long it's going to take for them to be able to rectify that and get a little bit more of a solid structure that gives them an opportunity to, even when they're not performing at their best, they're still picking up some results.
Yeah. Obviously, formation's been sort of questioned at times. Stephen Presley did say after the game, well, it worked well against Celtic, why change it, sort of thing. And obviously the fans not very happy with what they're seeing, and that's important, isn't it? In personnel, the team selections from the off. Anyway, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Obviously, they need to turn it around quite quickly. On to Hearts against Dundee United. Michael, the Jambos. A point against Dundee United at home, surely no bad thing. And yet the reaction from some people, I think, sums up two things: how well Hearts have started the season and how big a threat they are to some teams this year.
I think obviously just sort of gives an indication of where things are at the moment. The Dundee United were good. I thought they were impressive. Their overall performance made it very difficult for Hearts, and the edge just wasn't quite there for Hearts. Obviously, there's a number of sort of key things that just weren't on point. First of all, thought that was a terrible mistake from Kucherenko, but he's just so unfortunate when it comes back off the post and into the back of the net. This is a wonderful goal, and Fata that's taking the corner, I thought he was outstanding all afternoon, constantly causing problems for Hearts down that left-hand side, and a great header for Stevenson as well. Yes, I think it's an indication of where Hearts are now, the expectations there. Over the piece, a draw at home against Dundee United, it's not the worst, but hot on the heels, obviously, of having drawn against St Mirren as well. It's now 2 draws in the last 3 games. It just feels like they're needing a big performance and result in a couple of weeks' time at Pittodrie, their next league game, which is not obviously going to be easy at all. No. they're the right side of the team. You know, I've spoken about it at length. It's the one area that is clearly not ideal. The manager went with McEntee, as he has done at right back for the vast majority, and he had Kabore playing in front of him because he was so good against Dundee, and he's trying to fit all those players in. You feel for Kabore a little bit because he did really well against Dundee, but how are you fitting them all in? And I think that it obviously didn't work. And I felt for him a wee bit because he wasn't poor against Dundee United. He was playing out of position there. He wants to be more central. And then the manager obviously made substitutions at half-time and changed that right-hand side of the team. So January can't really come quick enough with regards to that. They've done very well, the right side of the team. They've not been bad. They've done well. But that still isn't a long-term solution for me. So they need to find the pieces that will fit in there if they've got aspirations of really going the distance.
Yeah, we also said, by the way, Al, if you remember last week, about trying to keep the key players fit. Beningame, we said, had injuries throughout his career. Just watching the extended highlights, as good as Dundee United were at times, that felt like the Dundee United from earlier this season to me. But without him, that presence in the middle of the park, Hearts weren't the same.
Yeah, because him and Devlin, they work really well. You know, they'll give 110%. They're good on the ball. They keep things moving along. And how many times have we mentioned the spine of the team, how strong they are? And then you've got the flair players that come into play off the wide areas, or Bragg, or whoever it might be. Look, they're not going to go through the season winning every single game. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So there's going to be little moments where they're going to, but it's how you react to it. And I think Dundee United on their day can put up a show against anybody. I mean, the front three I thought can be really dangerous. They're just a little bit inconsistent at this moment. I think like they can be very good, but you just don't really know what you're getting. But I felt they were worth obviously the point at the weekend.
Yeah, I love watching Sapsford play at times. I think some of his play is just outstanding, and obviously he had some goals, a couple of goals ruled out, another he was involved in, ruled out for offside. All correct decisions, I should say. Right.
They were easier, they ones. They were easier.
They were a wee touch easier. There's no doubt about that. Right, Hearts, Michael, do you still... I know you said in the start, you're not getting too excited, getting carried away about early title talk and everything else, but do you feel, though, they can hang in there for the foreseeable at least? If you think that, other teams may claw back the gap a bit, do you still think there's enough about them that they can hang in there for the foreseeable and make it a title race?
Yeah, well, what did I mean? I said a couple of weeks ago, if you look at the historical sort of gap between first and third, it was roughly about 30 points.
Yeah.
So if you're going through the thirds, it's 10 points. Now, Hearts were effectively almost 10 points ahead after the first third. They're now in a position where they've clearly dropped some points, but that would be reverting back to a normal situation. So if that was to continue, they would still end up effectively within 10 points of first. So if that is the case, that's them still, and they're still going to be in the hunt deep and long into the season. And that's on the basis of Celtic going on a real run of win after win after win, which we're still unsure if they're going to be able to do that. We don't know who their manager is going to be. We don't know how long Martin O'Neill's going to be around. So there's still a lot of unknowns there. Are Hearts going to be able to win the league? As I said all along, I think it's a long shot. I don't think they will, but I think second is clearly there for the taking. But January is a huge window. It's a difficult one for every club as well. Hearts have got Chesnikov coming in. Ajew, who looked well off the pace, I've got to say, yesterday, clearly needs to get up to speed. So there's what could feel like two new players into the team. And there may well be others, and there may be some that get moved on as well. There's too many variables, and it's too early in the season to say that they're going to challenge for the title. What we do know is it is far better for the game having more teams up there showing that they're capable, because it just generates far more interest.
I think you'll know more about it. See when the gap does shorten, or when it shortens.
Well,
the pressure that will, but I mean even closer, or maybe Celtic overtake them or whatever, then their reaction to that. If they can go and continue to fight and keep going, then it could be a really good season for them. So it'll be interesting. They are clawing points back, Celtic and Rangers, of course.
I was going to say, Al, you're saying it's only Celtic that can catch them. Where are you going with this?
I am not. So it's 12 points, game in hand, so it could go to 9? Hey, it's not that far away.
Yeah, you're not giving up hope just yet. Right.
Yeah, then there's always hope, Darrell. That's the last thing to go.
I know, I've said this many times the last few years. There's always hope. If there's nothing else, there's hope in life, mate. Right, Celtic Kilmarnock then, sort of nicely take us on to that then, Michael. Martin O'Neill, couple of really good domestic wins in the league and a win against Rangers in the Cup too. Qualifying that by saying they were really poor for the first 45 minutes in particular, Michael, out in Denmark, weren't they? But Martin O'Neill has certainly steadied things, hasn't he? Especially domestically.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any doubt, obviously, that after the defeat at Tynecastle, they were clearly rocking. It wasn't looking particularly rosy for them. The European game in Denmark, and it's the same for obviously Rangers. That Danny Rose made a difference domestically, but the European games are clearly not up to scratch.
No, that was a big disappointment. I was watching it was stark, the difference in quality in the first 45 minutes. I'm not sure the team selection was right either, but it wasn't a great watch from Celtic's point of view. No,
it wasn't at all. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, obviously with international break. Martin O'Neill unsure whether they'll make an announcement on bringing somebody else in or whether he'll be asked to stay on a bit longer. It's very much all up for grabs really with Celtic. What is going to happen? Don't know. Martin O'Neill's look. I think I heard folk talking about what's the difference between the performances and the style of Martin O'Neill to Brendan Rodgers. What we're seeing now, these performances we've seen, umpteen times under Brendan Rodgers. Loads of energy, pressing, intensity. But what was quite clear that this season, that wasn't happening to the same level. And perhaps just a different voice has, been able to get something out of the team. But there's still obviously major concerns for Celtic because you've got Alistair Johnston that's having to get surgery on his hamstring, which is a massive blow. Carter Vickers is out. Jota's out. These are, big players. They don't have a striker at the moment that you would.
Callum Osmond as well is going to get surgery. Sounds like
Ian Acho's out. You've only got Johnny Kenny really, and then Maeda is another sort of option to go through there. It's far from ideal for Celtic. And are they going to drop points? Possibly. And they can ill afford really to be dropping points. I think Martin O'Neill clearly.
He's got players like Johnny Kenny going though, hasn't he? And Maeda, there's flashes Maeda when you look at the highlights, flashes of the old Maeda, if you like as well. I thought he was excellent against Rangers, particularly first 45 minutes. Absolutely. It was glaring how much Celtic missed him in Denmark in the first half. So there are good signs in there as well, Michael.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The performance level, folks saying, totally, what's the difference? The difference is the intensity is there, but it's not as if it's something that's revolutionary, different in terms of what we saw under Brendan Rodgers. This season, the edge wasn't there for Celtic under Brendan Rodgers. For whatever reason, it simply wasn't there. And it now seems like there's just a little bit coming back to Celtic. But structurally as a team, as I'm saying to you, they've got some problems that it seems at the moment they're just beginning to sort of cover up at the moment. Sarachi's another one that's picked up an injury. There's quite a few injuries. I think that was a hamstring as well from Sarachi. That's a number of hamstring injuries that would be, a bit of an issue. It's that's a wonderful ball from Engels, I've got to say. And it's good to see some of those, Engels back in, Trusty back in. They were some bizarre, I've got to say, decisions from Brendan Rodgers latterly that they just did not seem like they were being quoted at all. And I thought
Dane Murray was playing in front of Austin Trusty.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see how long Martin O'Neill is around for and what's going to happen.
Well, of the names, Michael, I mean, is there standout? For instance, Kjetil Knutsen, I think I've said that right, by the way, is somebody that you've mentioned for a long time, linked with other jobs, that you've always liked what he's done at Bodo Glimt. In fact, the results for Bodo Glimt have been sensational. I see some of his comments. There's a suggestion maybe he wants to see out the Champions League campaign, which would take them into the new year with Bodo. Whether Celtic need to get something, or they feel that they need to get something done right now. But, is he the standout candidate to you? On social media tonight, Wilfred Nancy has been mentioned a lot as well. Any of the names that you think that's the fit?
I mean, it's a real tough one, isn't it? But yeah, you're right. I have gone on about Knutsen for, a while. Well, I mean, it's understandable because he's done an incredible job at Bodo Glimt. It sort of goes without saying that he would imagine that he would be looked at whether he's going to be attracted to Celtic or not. I don't know.
The board would have to back his vision. There's a comment coming in, and I think that's important because Knutsen has said that if he leaves Bodo Glimt, the project has to be right for him and really exciting. And I think he's been offered other jobs, Michael, which he's turned down. So this has to be, right for him as well.
Aye, of course. I mean, look, he's been at Bodo Glimt for a number of years now. He's he's got them in Champions League and stuff like that. We've seen them previously playing, obviously, against Celtic and doing very, very well.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think he was in, with a shout for the Ajax gig and seemed to, sort of knock it back in the summer there. So, if he's doing things like that, then you're saying if Celtic are going to attract him, they're going to have to really put forward an attractive proposition to him, not just in terms of financially, but the whole structure in place for him to come in and implement what he's looking for. Obviously, Nicky Hayden at Brugge.
What a job he's done at Club Brugge.
Yeah, but not to say that these guys would, that they wouldn't want to go to Celtic. But for example, at Brugge, they're almost an identikit of what we're saying Celtic should be looking to be. So would he want to leave there to go to Celtic when it feels like the job he's doing at Brugge would perhaps open up the possibilities to go to one of the the top leagues in Europe potentially? It feels like, I'm not sure. It'd be a tough one. Again, Celtic need to make a real strong proposition to these guys, I would say.
Yeah, the board would have to sell it to guys like Nicky Hayden or Knutsen or whoever it would be. That's the truth.
See, Darrell, for me, this goes back to, let's not forget, Brendan Rodgers is a top-class manager. It wasn't working at the end, but to be able to attract a manager of that calibre is not easy. But with the likes of Martin O'Neill and Brendan Rodgers, they've got that emotional connection with the club, which obviously helps to be able to bring them to the club. The likes of Knutsen and Nicky Hayden, they don't have that emotional connection. It needs to be purely on what is the vision that they're selling. And clearly, the vision and the idea and the structure and the proposition there under what is going on at Brendan Rodgers was part of the problem. It was part of the problem. And what role is Paul Tisdale going to have in all this? I mean, this guy came in October, head of football operations. We've never heard a word from him.
It got under the radar a lot.
We've not heard a word from him. And what is he actually doing? Now, you would imagine that he's got a heavy role to play in the recruitment side of things. And, well, we've seen what's happened with the recruitment. It was truly horrendous. The two windows, January and the summer, since Paul Tisdale's been in the building, they've sold all their best players.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So any new manager that's coming in the same vein as what we're talking about at Rangers with Kevin Thelwell, any new manager is going to be saying, well, what's the structure here? What's their role?
Yeah, and there's a few people I can see comments tonight saying, will Paul Tisdale's get any say? It might be Wilfred Nancy. I think there's a connection there as well I was reading about earlier on. So we'll see what happens. You mentioned striking options, by the way. I just think Shin Yamada is a little bit unfortunate not to be given another opportunity. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers didn't see it, but I thought he showed flashes in games in the past where he could be a useful player. But anyway, so there is another option there if needed. Alan, should I leave the Kilmarnock side of things to you? The final football comment of the night, if you like. It just shows you how quick it can change. I know I said it last week as well. Can't judge them, though, in a game necessarily at Celtic Park without key players. Really unlucky, the goalkeeping situation, missing a important centre-half too. Not the kind of day you're going to fully judge Killie. Equally, they can't let this roll on, can they, after the break?
No, I don't think they'll be judged off that, but still you look at it and think they could do way better. I think if you look at some of the goals they conceded, I feel for Kettlewell in the situation with the goalkeeper Stryjek. I think they've really missed him. It's been difficult without him. But, I mean, losing 5 games in a row, 14 goals conceded in those 5 games. I mean, that's alarm bells ringing for me. So it's difficult. Killie were always like strong defensively, and they had that foundation there. Then they built off that, and they'd go up and they would try and be a real threat and stuff. They've just not got that at this moment in time, and that's what's really kind of holding them back. So I think it's over the international break, it's get back to basics, work hard defensively, cut out the mistakes, all that sort of thing needs to be done, and then go again. But yeah, it's not good reading at the moment.
Al, what about David Watson? He's been linked with both sides of the Glasgow divide, if you like, both the old firm. At Celtic most recently. Would he be a good fit? Do you think he's the kind of player that can step up and excel at the next level? You've seen a lot of him.
Yeah, I think he can. I'm not surprised that both sides of Glasgow is looking at him. I think...
Where would you like him to go, Al?
I'd rather go to Rangers. But I think when you look over the years, and we've spoken about this, like, Rangers and Celtic have missed out on top talent, I think Scottish talent over the years, and they've been able to leave and go to different countries and different things and really thrive. I think it's always good if he's ready to take that next step, which I think he is, and it's no disrespect to Kilmarnock. I think he can go and kick on. He's got all the quality that you would need for him to play in a team such as that. And then it's down to him. Can he play to that level week in, week out with consistency? That's up to him then. But he's definitely got the ability to do so.
Yes. Scotland, Al, to come. Are you optimistic?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
You optimistic?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Buzzing for it. 2 huge games. And to be in this position with it in your own hands, look, there's going to be difficult. There's no getting away from that. But there's a real excitement. I'm really looking forward to it. So first game at the weekend, hopefully we can get a result. And then that game against Denmark, oh my, that would be huge.
Can you imagine? We could be here in 2 weeks' time at qualified for a World Cup. That would be absolutely sensational if that's what we're discussing in 2 weeks. Right, almost out of time. I think Michael's furiously sending messages tonight anyway, so I better sign off in a moment. But just to say, loads
that's the
of
first
live
time
games.
I've ever heard them say sorry.
There's loads of games to come in Premier Sports anyway, raging. Kilmarnock, Dundee United, that's 29th of November, I believe. 3rd of December, Dundee United against Rangers. Aberdeen, Dundee United's the 27th of December. On the 30th, Motherwell against Celtic. Don't forget the Premier Sports Cup final as well, St Mirren Celtic. That is December the 14th. So loads of football to come. But I think, as you can see here, we all need an international break. So we're going to take one right now. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.